right, Senator Kamala Harris is receiving a lot of backlash, Sean, after saying she was proud of Jacob Blake, the man who police shot in the back several times after resisting arrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Well, Blake's attorney released a statement saying, in part, quote, "In a moving moment, Jacob Blake told Senator Harris that he was proud of her, and the senator told Jacob that she was also proud of him and how he is working through his pain," end quote. Well, former Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly tweeted this in response, quote, "Proud of him? He's accused of breaking into a sleeping woman's house, sexually assaulting her, humiliating her, and later returning to harass her. Then the cops she called for help say he resisted arrest, assaulting them, and went for his knife. How about a word for his victim, Senator?" End quote. We'll discuss. Let's bring in our company, the founding editor of the Washington Free Beacon and resident fellow, Matthew Continetti, and the former special assistant to President Trump, Kelly Sadler. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, this has received a lot of backlash. I've heard not only Megyn Kelly talk about this, but many others talk about Kamala Harris shouldn't have said that she was proud of Jacob Blake. But I want to put some context in it. If we can pull back up the statement by the lawyer when she met with him, that he actually is quoting what they said to each other. Jacob said that he was proud of her, and in response, she says that "I'm proud of you for working through the pain." So I do think that we need to add context that she didn't just say blanket statement, "I'm proud of you." She did say for working through the pain, and as someone who values life, I can respect that. I think the question here, Kelly, is really why is the Biden-Harris ticket embracing Jacob Blake when we don't have the full picture? There is still an investigation going on.
Yeah, and I think what Megyn Kelly was trying to do in that tweet was point out Kamala Harris's hypocrisy. If you remember Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court hearings, Kamala Harris was at the front row seat of that driving that circus, accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, coming out strongly and saying, "I believe her." She did the same when she was running against Joe Biden for the presidential ticket, saying that she believed Tara Reade's story and all women should be believed. Of course, she now becomes his vice presidential nominee, and she believes Joe Biden. And she also, you're seeing all these flip-flops and inconsistencies in her record, and this is why the Trump campaign has labeled her phony. And I think that's what Megyn Kelly was trying to do in that tweet, was just show the politics of this whole thing.
Yeah, and it is political, Matthew. And I think, Kelly has a great point that we see them flip-flocking and using what they want. My question is, well, why aren't they meeting with, remember this 8-year-old little girl that was shot in Atlanta when her mom was trying to get through a barricade that shouldn't have been there, put there by protesters, and this little girl was shot. Why don't we see Biden and Harris going to meet with that family? Because probably it's not political enough.
Right. And the Biden-Harris ticket is playing to the narrative, and the narrative here is about rampant police violence against black men in particular. And so they're doing everything they can to drive that message home. I think a larger point here is that Kamala Harris has not added much to this race at all. It's only in moments like this, or in her comment that she would be reluctant to take the coronavirus vaccine, that she's been popping up in the media storyline about the 2020 campaign. Harris provided no bump to the Biden ticket. She doesn't seem to excite any sector of the population. And now she's producing these moments that are kind of, eyebrow raising at the very least. I don't think she's been helping this ticket very much.
Kelly, let me ask you a bigger question about Megyn's response, though. Do you think it's a fair game? Megyn's tweet was going after the history of this individual's criminal behavior. We don't discuss this in a lot of the cases of these victims of police brutality. Do you think that that's fair game to discuss it, or that it shouldn't be discussed at all, as Megyn was trying to point out?
I think it should be discussed and should be evaluated. What were the motives? What was he accused of? The police should be examined. Did they take proper protocols? But it's alleged that Jacob Blake was running to get his knife and resisted arrest, and that's the reason why he was shot. Now, I value all life too. I think it's terrible that he's paralyzed, but you've got to evaluate the whole situation before you cast blame on one party. And it seems to be, especially with the Democrats, that the law enforcement officers are always the guilty party right out of the gate, and they're always to blame. And there just really is no fair hearing for them.
Yeah, I think that's right. We got to hear both sides of the story here, not just one. Matthew, I want to switch gears just a little bit. The Academy Awards has announced a new inclusion requirement for Best Picture Oscar contenders for 2021. They say films must have at least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors represent an unrepresented racial group, with at least 30% of all actors in minor roles from unrepresented groups. Creative leadership as well on films is encouraged to be made up of women, unrepresented racial or ethnic groups, a part of the LGBTQ community, or people with disabilities. Wow, it's a mouthful there and a lot to include in these films. You know, it makes me wonder what our film's going to look like moving forward, especially when we see some of these true stories. Can they not be up for awards now?
It's a pretty shocking story. Someone pointed out early on that these rules would have prohibited The Godfather from being the best picture. Godfather considered one of the best movies ever made. And apparently, according to these new strictures, it could not be considered best picture. I think this is the end game of the social justice movement America is experiencing at the moment. And I think it's terrifying to a lot of people. It's a form of affirmative action on steroids, and it also involves, when you get into the regulations, it says that these rules will be monitored through spot checks, almost a commissar-like system of surveillance and policing. I would be surprised in the end if these regulations actually go through. They're slated to take place in 2024. I think that gives the industry a lot of time to walk them back, which I hope they do.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. Kelly, Matthew, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, well, still to come tonight, Biden is walking back his call for a national mask mandate. Sean and I are going to discuss after the break.